On October 5th, the cool kids flew from Nashville to Philadelphia and then on to Venice. We arrived in Venice at around 9 a.m. on October 6th and took a water bus into the city. After dropping off our luggage at our apartment near the Rialto Bridge, we headed to St. Mark's Square. First site on the square we visited was St. Mark's Basilica. The present basilica was built in 1094. Photography is not permitted inside. St. Mark's body was stolen from Alexandria by Venetian merchants in 832 AD and placed here. Next, we visited the Doge's palace. The palace, originally built in the 9th century but rebuilt in the 13th century, was the home of the Doge, or Duke of Venice. Doges, who were elected for life, were confined by law to stay in the palace complex and the connected St. Mark's Basilica. The palace contained the offices for a number of political institutions and the Grand Council Chamber. Criminals would be led to the prison via the Bridge of Sighs. After leaving St. Mark's Square, we headed to dinner at Antico Dolo in the San Polo district of Venice. After that, we headed back to the apartment while enjoying the nighttime atmosphere of Venice along the Rialto Bridge. On October 7th, some of us went on a morning walk to the Rialto Market in St. Mark's Square, and then all of us bought 48-hour water bus passes. We took a water bus to one of Venice's lagoon islands, Murano. Murano is famous for its glass making. The glassmakers of Venice were forced to move here in 1291 due to the risk of fires. We were able to see a glassmaking demonstration and buy various Murano glass souvenirs. From Murano, we headed to another island, Burano. Burano is a fishing community known for its brightly colored painted houses. The island is also famous for its lace making. After having lunch, we boarded a water bus to head back into Venice.
We're having a nice time. Pretty ladies, pretty.
Pretty. Today was pretty.
Today's pretty.
Well, that's it. But the further you need to just pull something really here. Yeah, but you can train to ranch.
We had a light dinner in our apartment while enjoying the view of the Grand Canal from our windows. Later in the evening, most of us headed into St. Mark's Square to take in the nighttime atmosphere and to enjoy the music of the dueling cafe orchestras. We had drinks and dessert at Cafe Florian, which is one of the most famous Venetian cafes on the square. It was originally established in 1720. On October 8th, we took a train from Venice to Verona. Verona is the second largest city in the Veneto region. Because it lies along the major routes from Germany and Austria into central Italy, It is an important trading center. Verona is also famous for some of its Roman ruins. The arena in Verona is the third largest in the world. It was completed in 30 AD. Originally, the arena was used for gladiator battles, but is now used for opera concerts. Another site in Venice is the House of Juliet. Although the story of Romeo and Juliet is a work of fiction, it doesn't stop people from visiting her supposed house and making wishes for love underneath the balcony. The final site in Verona we visited was Piazza Erbe. The column topped by the Venetian lion in the square is a reminder of Venice conquering Verona in 1405. After arriving back in Venice, we cruised down the Grand Canal to our apartment. Although our apartment was in the perfect location in Venice and had wonderful views, one negative thing was the amount of stairs we had to climb to reach it on the 5th floor.
So it's good not to drink too much while going up these stairs. Because we have way too many, as you can see. Now you're going
We're
too
not
slow.
halfway there yet.
We're like, what, a quarter? We're in Boston, you keep climbing safely. And there's steep stairs as well. I think we're what,
This
halfway?
also is easier without luggage.
It's also easier without luggage. Luggage in these stairs, not a good match. Especially Mel's luggage. That weighs like a ton. You've got a wall coming up in We're getting closer. And we've arrived.
After relaxing for a bit in the apartment, we decided to let Rachel guide us as we wandered the streets of Venice.
Eventually every right will get you there.
Unless it's a left. Don't you want to?
We're walking, and we're gonna
Yeah, but
we're taking the 4 minute slower path because we're about a block over than where we need to be.
found my future home. It needs a paint job. This is my future home. Ladies and gentlemen, future home. Some exterior work needed. Interior, is a piece of crap. What are we looking for? That's looking like a dead end. We're just gonna go. Eureka! I finally found it. It may have taken a few extra steps, but I found it.
After visiting and seeing the artwork in the Scuola San Rocco and the Frari Church, we had dinner at Ristorante Al Paradiso. Then, we headed back to the apartment for probably the most fun, hilarious, and entertaining night on the trip. We left Venice on October 9th and took a high-speed Italo train to Florence. These high-speed trains can go as fast as 300 kilometers an hour or about 190 miles per hour. We dropped off our luggage in the train station. Then we took a 60-minute regional train to Pisa. The three main buildings on the Field of Miracles are the Baptistry, the Duomo, and the Leaning Tower. Construction of the Leaning Tower, which serves as the bell tower for the Duomo, began in 1173. Because of the sandy soil, the tower started leaning in 1274 after the third level was added. In 1990, after the lean of the tower increased to 5 meters from vertical, it was closed to the public so that engineers could work on it. In 2001, after the lean was reduced by 50 centimeters, the tower was reopened. Engineers have declared that the tower should be stable for the next 300 years. The baptistry at the Field of Miracles is the largest in Italy. Construction of the Duomo started in 1063 and finished about a century later. We took the train back to Florence, checked into our apartment, and had dinner at Trattoria Giagia, where we had Florentine steak. Since the major museums are closed in Florence on Mondays, we took an hour and 15-minute bus trip to Siena. Siena is famous for its main square. Twice a year, a bareback horse race is held on the square, pitting the city's neighborhoods against one another. The Civic Museum is contained in the most prominent building on the square, City Hall. Inside the museum, there's a fresco showing the effects of good and bad government.
That lady over there.
Initial construction of Siena's Duomo began in 1215. In the 1330s, plans began to enlarge the church so that it would have become the largest in Italy. But in 1348, the Black Death decimated Siena's population, so construction was permanently halted. Under the molding above the arches inside the cathedral are plaster busts of the first 172 popes. We took the bus back to Florence and had dinner at Ciro and Sons. After dinner, we walked to Florence's Duomo and then on to Piazza della Signoria to see both lit up at night. In front of Palazzo Vecchio is a replica statue of David. The original one stood here until 1873. Our first stop on October 11th was the Accademia, where Michelangelo's David is housed. A 26-year-old Michelangelo started work on the statue in 1501 and completed it in 1504. Originally, it was to be placed along the roofline of the Duomo before it was decided to place it on Piazza della Signoria. Before we entered Florence's Duomo, Louis found a paten and chalice in a nearby store. Florence's Duomo is one of the largest in Italy. Construction began in 1296 and the structure was completed in 1436. The dome, designed by Brunelleschi, was constructed without any scaffolding. We next headed to the Santa Croce Church. The church contains the tombs of Michelangelo, Galileo, and Machiavelli. After lunch at Ristorante del Fagioli, we walked to Ponte Vecchio. On the bridge there are many jewelry shops. The Uffizi Gallery contains the greatest collection of Italian paintings anywhere. Amongst others, it houses paintings by Giotto, Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Botticelli. The building was originally built to house the offices of Florentine magistrates in the 16th century. Two of the more famous works in the Uffizi Gallery are Primavera and The Birth of Venus by Botticelli. After leaving the Uffizi, we headed back to the apartment for dinner and learned about alternate uses for bidets. On October 12th, we took an early morning high-speed train to Rome. After dropping off our luggage at a luggage storage facility, we started walking toward the Vatican. Castel San Angelo was originally built as a mausoleum for Emperor Hadrian in 123 AD. It was later converted to a papal fortress in the Middle Ages. When we arrived outside of St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis was beginning his Wednesday morning papal audience. Melissa was quite excited to see him, even though it was from quite a distance. We decided to visit the Vatican Museum during the papal audience in order to try to avoid the crowds. The Vatican Museum is one of Europe's top art museums. Contained within are collections of Egyptian, Greek, medieval, and Renaissance art, as well as some modern religious artwork. The Sistine Chapel is contained within the Vatican Museum. Photography is not permitted inside the Sistine Chapel, but if you are sneaky, you can get a few good shots. After lunch, we headed back to Vatican City and stood in line in St. Peter's Square in order to enter St. Peter's Basilica. Construction of the present basilica began in 1508, and it was completed in 1626. Ordinary jubilees are celebrated every 25 or 50 years, but Pope Francis had declared that 2016 would be a special jubilee year and the Holy Year of Mercy. Except during jubilee years, the Holy Door at St. Peter's is sealed with mortar and cement, so we were very lucky to have the opportunity to enter through it. There were a large number of groups making pilgrimages to St. Peter's in order to walk through the Holy Door. Michelangelo's Pieta was sculpted in 1499. After a crazy man claiming to be Jesus attacked the sculpture with an axe in 1972, bulletproof glass was put in front of it for protection. The Dome of St. Peter's was designed by Michelangelo, who was the chief architect from 1546 until his death in 1564. Because a mass was being held, we were not able to see parts of the church or kiss the toe of a bronze statue of St. Peter. After checking into the apartment and relaxing for a little while, we walked over to Piazza Navona. The Fountain of the Four Rivers is located in the center of the square and was designed by Bernini. After leaving the square, we headed to dinner at Da Francesco, where most of us had Roman-style pizza, and some of us tried fried lamb brain and sweetbreads. The first site we visited on October 13th was the Pantheon. It was originally built as a Roman temple about 2,000 years ago, but is now a church. The dome of the Pantheon was the largest built until the Renaissance. The Victor Emmanuel Monument was built to honor the first king of United Italy. It is nicknamed the Wedding Cake. On our way to the Colosseum, we passed by Trajan's Column and the Forum of Augustus. The Colosseum was originally known as the Flavian Amphitheater. Work began on it in 72 AD. The stadium was capable of seating over 50,000 people to watch gladiators in combat. The floor of the Colosseum was originally made of wood and covered with sand. Underneath were vaults and tunnels to hold animals and slaves. Much of the original marble in the Colosseum was stolen by Renaissance architects. After leaving the Colosseum, we had lunch and then walked to the nearby Roman Forum. During the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire, the Forum contained many important temples as well as the Senate House. Santa Maria Antigua is a church that was built in the 5th century in the Roman Forum. It contains many Byzantine frescoes. The first restaurant we tried to get a table at was completely full, so we had to wander around a bit in search of another.
It's getting dark.
October 14th was our last full day in Italy. We first headed to Piazza del Popolo. During the Middle Ages, this marked the north entrance into Rome. The obelisk in the center of the square was originally brought to Rome by Emperor Augustus after he conquered Egypt. The Spanish Steps are a famous gathering place for both locals and tourists. The Steps gets its name from the square at its base, which is where the Spanish embassy to the Vatican was originally located. From the Spanish Steps, we walked to the Church of Santa Maria della Vittoria. It houses Bernini's Saint Teresa in Ecstasy. The statue played a role in Dan Brown's Angels and Demons. The Trevi Fountain is the largest Baroque fountain in Rome. Building of the fountain began in 1732 and took about 30 years to complete. According to legend, if you throw one coin in the Trevi Fountain on your last day in Rome, you will guarantee yourself a return trip to the city. If you throw 2 coins, you will fall in love. And if you throw 3, depending on your marital status, you'll either get married or will have a successful divorce. We had our last meal in Italy at the apartment, where we of course had plenty of wine. The next morning we said goodbye to Italy and headed back to the United States.
Ma chi l'ha detto che del buon vino bisogna bere solo un bicchierino? Pranzo e cena senza strafare, non mi posso più ubriacare. Con mio fiaschetto dove ti metto, ti nascondo anche sotto il letto. Io ti voglio sempre vicino, oh mio buon caro amico vino. Rossi, bianchi, fermi o frizzanti, vi voglio bere tutti quanti. Se son burlone bevo amarone, se son contento bevo cilento, sono stressato bevo moscato, son birichino, un fragolino, mi sento bello bevo brunello, sono sfinito bevo un passito, ma se mi sento più cortese prediligo un sangiovese. Se son birbante bevo spumante, se son pignolo bevo Barolo, mi sento sano bevo trebbiano, son malandrino un bardolino. Se ho litigato con la ragazza mi consolo con la vernazza, poi me ne vado da Gabriella che mi offrirà un valpolicella. Ma chi l'ha detto che del buon vino bisogna bere solo un bicchierino? Pranzo e cena senza strafare, non mi posso più ubriacare. Con mio fiaschetto dove ti metto, ti nascondo anche sotto il letto. Io ti voglio sempre vicino, oh mio buon caro amico vino. Rossi, bianchi, fermi o frizzanti, vi voglio bere tutti quanti. Se son burlone bevo amarone, se son contento bevo cilento, sono stressato bevo moscato, son birichino, un fragolino, mi sento bello bevo brunello, sono sfinito bevo un passito, ma se mi sento più cortese prediligo un sangiovese. Se son birbante bevo spumante, se son pignolo bevo Barolo, mi sento sano bevo trebbiano, son malandrino un bardolino. Se ho litigato con la ragazza mi consolo con la vernazza, poi me ne vado da Gabriella che mi offrirà un valpolicella.